Experience, business lessons for physical therapists. My name is Paul Gough, former professional soccer physical therapist turned successful business owner and best-selling author from the UK. Each week, we answer your questions and bring you an inspiring story or person from the global physical therapy community. This show is dedicated to sharing with you everything you need to know to become hugely successful in private practice. Thanks for joining me today. Now let the class begin. This is the one we've all been waiting for. It's Scotland's first ever podcast, everybody. It's I went for it straight away. There you go. We're in Scotland. For those listening who don't know where Scotland is, it's this thing at the top of England that like we just like give them and gift it. It's a bit like, am I allowed to say it's a bit like Canada in the US? It's kind of like there geographically. It's this thing that it doesn't really do much. It's got a bit of oil up there, but it doesn't really do much. It just gives the English loads of grief, and like they always want to leave England, and like the English are like, yeah, cool, off you go, and then the Scots realize they don't want to leave England, and they decide to stay. So yeah, we're in Scotland, and more specifically, we're off to Glasgow, a very famous football town. I'm sure we'll get into talking about some football or soccer, as some people listening to this might call it. But yeah, listen, we're live all over the world. I'm just going to put my Facebook on so I can get the questions that are going to come in the chat. Can you see that coming up? Yeah, I think we're live now. I've got it. I'm just going to turn it down. Yeah, we're going to get into some very good questions. Steve is a long-time mastermind member of mine and has just done incredibly well over the last few years. It's been a fantastic journey that it's been a pleasure to kind of watch and just, kind of from afar, if you like, get to see the progress that he's made and the successes that he's had, and we'll get into that. First, Private Practice Marketer Live, for those people just coming up, we are, how many days? Just over 3 weeks? We're just over 3 weeks. And Nicola Sturgeon, the First Minister of Scotland, has allowed Steve out. He had to apply for a special visa. We've assisted many countries with visa. One from Brunei, one from Kenya, one from all of these like third world countries, and Scotland, to get people into the United States for the biggest event of the year. So Steve will be on his way across. You coming on your own, Steve, or are you bringing the family?
No, just a moment this time.
Was it
family last time? This time, I think I'll just come and have a little bit of time to get my thoughts together and have a bit more fun.
Good for you. We'll get into that. So Steve's on his way over from Scotland.
I'm still recovering from Disney in February.
What, the price of it all? You mean the credit card is probably still being charged? Is it if you were in Disney? Yeah, it's quite the shock for a few people who haven't been since COVID. Put it that way. If you're heading into the theme parks and the drinks and the prices, it's you won't get much change for $50 if you're taking two kids for a couple of Sprites and some popcorn these days. That's for sure.
It was amazing though.
It's the best. It's the coolest place on earth. It really is. So yeah, we've got the big event coming up. We are 3 weeks on Thursday for the Financial Skills Day, the kickoff. If you come in, head over to ppmlive22.com to get your seat. You can listen back on the podcast. We're putting some episodes up now, which are giving a sneak peek into some of the content that we're going to be sharing across the weekend. There'll be 300 in the room, people from all over the world. We've got a spectacular opening ceremony. Simon's bought a wonderful outfit that I'm not allowed to give away or reveal as to exactly. I don't even know how to describe. Is it a what he's going to look like or who he's dressing up as? But Simon's coming on, our master of ceremonies and mastermind head coaches. He's got a very pivotal role to play across that weekend, that's for sure. So head over, book your seat. We can get you in, bring your staff. There's a strict cap of 300. There is a fire marshal in the room. We are literally packing the room out. And I don't know if you've been to an event in the US, but when they have the fire marshals there, they are strict, right? They're like a jobs with, we'd call them in Britain, where they're just a complete pain in the ass, inspecting everything. And at this event, because I wanted a certain thing happening on the stage, I needed a fire marshal. So that means they'll also be inspecting the number of people in the room. So we can't go above 300 or the whole thing will get shut down. So it's going to be fun. And we cannot wait to put it on. So Steve, let's go. Let's get into it with you. Tell us a little bit about your story. How did you get started? We're in Glasgow. We're in a small little town. Is it a small town? How would you describe Clarkston?
Yeah, Clarkston's a small town in the south side of Glasgow. It's very close to sort of Newton Mearns, which is my hometown. It's got about maybe sort of 40,000 people in it. and it's quite an affluent area. It's the nice part of Glasgow. You can walk down the street quite freely.
Yeah.
But it's a lovely part of town. So originally my story started back as a sport and exercise scientist. So I went to uni to do sport and exercise science, mainly just out of school, obviously not sure what, like that stage in life, what do you actually want to do with yourself?
Yeah.
And I was quite interested in like sport, quite interested in nutrition, quite interested in the body effectively. Worked as a personal trainer for a little while, didn't like it, got bored very quickly, and decided I wanted to go back to uni to do physio. Went on to do the masters, worked in our NHS for sort of 6-7 years as a progressed through the MSK physio. More laterally worked like across sort of 5 sites in the East End of Glasgow, which is certainly very different to my side of town. Like there's a lot more poverty there. There's a lot of different challenges, but it was great. Like thoroughly enjoyed my time in the NHS. But at that time, obviously, I was involved in football as well, and it was not really very compatible for that. And lifestyle-wise, it didn't really mix too well. So I had a couple of conversations with the boss, and that didn't materialise. So I had to take things into my own hands, and that's when I started the clinic back in 2010. But I was doing that sort of part time, really, as much as anything else to maintain my qualifications, still keep that up, involved while I was involved with football. And you know the demands yourself when you were involved in football, it can be quite full on. So the clinic was kind of on the side, if you like. It was no longer the main thing. And then the kids came along, and your world changes. And then around about sort of 2018, I decided actually I need to probably step back a little bit from football and focus a lot more on the clinic. That's going to be the future. That's what I wanted to do. It was always an itch I had, that I wanted to see what I could actually do with it from a sort of business perspective, not so much a clinical perspective in operating as a clinician. And then that's when I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to do this seriously, I need to start thinking about business. And you realise very, very quickly that actually you know nothing about business. You just landed in it, and you start reading more, listening to podcasts. I think that's how I found your podcast. Then somehow you managed to convince me to come to Hartlepool in the middle of December. And I just jumped in the car
with Glasgow.
3.5 hours and was like, what the hell am I doing here? But,
do you know what? It's the powers of marketing. That's what it is. The power of marketing. I can turn even the coldest, darkest, dampest, dreary place like Hartlepool into a beautiful Christmas
town. It's got to be warmer
town.
than Glasgow. That was my theory. It's got to be warmer than Glasgow. I'm going south. It's got to be good.
Safer.
Going south.
Safer and warmer. So come on down marginally.
So so we went to that, and then I think after that we started on. Okay, let's go for it on Mastermind. Let's really knuckle down. 2020, best year yet. All that, highly motivated. January, feeling great. Came back, started Mastermind in the February. Boom, ready to go.
Yeah.
Lockdown in March. It's fab, absolutely fantastic. And that was probably the start of my journey. But that was like lockdown and COVID combining with starting Mastermind was like an accelerated business course for me.
Yeah.
Like it was 6 months, which was probably the equivalent of 10 years learning. And it was amazing. Like on reflection, it was the best thing ever.
It's interesting you say that, because a lot of the business owners I speak to, and it's again, what I love about life is the same thing happens to two people, and we can interpret it and deal with it very differently. And many people that you speak to have said the same thing, that it was probably the best thing that happened to me. It forced me to make decisions. It forced me to look at my business, or you might have took it easy, because it was easy. The conditions were easy and the money was everywhere. And now all of a sudden, in the period of time that we're in, the businesses that did really well through COVID are going to do very well through this next 6 to 12, 18 months. Like they'll just figure it out, not because they've got the right business at this point, but they've got the right attitude in the business owner who will seek information or advice or best practices, or get around people and ask what they're doing and how you're dealing with the pay rises or price objections or whatever. Like that's the attitudinal aspect. I think, of a business owner. And COVID didn't really expose the business as much as it did the attitude and the kind of commitment of the business owner. So we hit COVID, right? We got started. What was your build up to that? You said you were a clinician, but we're starting to think about business. How long had you been in practitioner, if you like, before you thought, right, you know what, I'm going for this business thing? Like, what was that transition? How long did that last?
Probably like around about sort of 2013 to 2015. So like I opened the second clinic in 2015 down in Largs, which is maybe about 50 miles, which is what for the American ones, that's maybe about 75, 80 kilometres away down the coast.
I think are we miles here? I wouldn't have a clue. I think we're miles. I think so. It's about the level of interest I pay in things that I'm not obliged to. I'm pretty sure the speed limit's miles.
It's nothing in American distances. Absolutely,
no, exactly.
Nothing.
It's like Walmart. It's Natalie goes further to Walmart.
Yeah, but it is cross country, coastal. So it's about an hour, about 50 minutes to an hour away. And it was because one of the physios that worked with me at the time was relocating to down to that area for family reasons, combined with there being a sort of sporting connection at their Inverclyde National Sports Centre, which is located down there. They'd approached us saying we're looking for physio. Became a bit of a interest. We realised there was a bit of an opportunity, and I went into a partnership with one of my clinicians who'd moved down there at that time, and that's when I probably started to think, okay, we could maybe duplicate this and create a bit of a business. But that was actually, in hindsight, I learned loads through doing that, and I'd probably do it a slightly different way now. And we, like last year, for instance, we split, and that was a significant milestone. Like, we're still good friends, we're still close and on excellent terms, but we were growing in different directions, and albeit we had similar values, we had similar goals, we had similar objectives in terms of wanting to be successful. We had probably different tolerance to risk. We had different understanding of what business is. We had different understanding of probably the roles and responsibilities, and we didn't have like a disagreement policy really in place. It was kind of like let's just have like chuck things at the wall and let's just go for it. Yeah. So in hindsight, like learned loads through that I probably wouldn't repeat. But with everything you learn, don't you? And I suppose that's the whole thing with business. Like, things happen, so you've got to say yes to stuff, say yes to things, and you get yourself into pickles occasionally, and you just learn and grow through it, and you just keep going.
I think the biggest thing that I watch as I kind of reflect and observe on my own life, and just obviously the position I'm in, if you like, I can get that vantage point of looking at business owners and the mistakes they make and how they've got to the point they're in. There's no consideration of anything going wrong. And what I mean by that is there's two devils. Well, there's two types of like things could go wrong. And the first one is that constant negative doubt that you've got, right? So we've all got that every single day where it's like, oh, Steve, that won't work. Steve, that won't work. You know, you spend that money on marketing, it won't work, right? There's this devil going on, but there's no real consequence to that. It's just bullshit. Like, there's just a voice going on, and it's all this, like, whatever you want to call it, right? It's just a natural, habitual, fearful thing that we all live with every day, right? Most people have got that. We're all hardwired with that. But what I see that people don't have is a genuine consideration for real consequences. That, like, this this could happen if I get into business with this person. What is happening is it's going to be rosy, everything's going to be fine, and everything that we do is going to work out well because we're both committed right now, we're both enthusiastic right now, but neither of us know what it's going to look like in 2 years. And I had a discussion recently on these lines with a CEO member who wanted to give a physio that they've had for, let's say, 4 or 5 years, right? So in 4 or 5 years, you get to the point where there's a guy that you want to keep, and you think about setting up clinic number 3 for this guy, and you say, look, like, you can have 50-50 split, but there's no consideration of what might happen further down the line if that guy isn't as productive as he is today. Now, for example, This person may then get married and have kids, and responsibilities change completely. If you've got somebody in your life right now that is like a very, very good physio, but all of a sudden then finds a new wife or husband or partner or whatever and has kids, they become a completely different person than the person that you've currently just give 50% ownership with today. So I sit in the room and I'm like devil's advocate is my job. And I just sit there and go, what if this happens? And I've seen all of these things. It's happened to me that these people change, right? These people move. And if you don't have a consequences list and you haven't thought through that the wife could say, no, I want you home at 5 o'clock. You've got 3 kids now, Steve. That's a very different guy. And by the way, I'm very cool with that if that's what you want to do. But it probably isn't the guy that you see today, if you like. It's, you know, the guy that you want to give the directorship to in the 50% partnership is probably working his nuts off till 8 o'clock at night, hustling, part of everything you do, your vision, wants to be an entrepreneur. But bang, the minute that lifestyle changes, you have to be at least aware of all of these things. And I spend more of my time trying to play but if I had a gun against your head, you would rob me, right? And I do this with my own team. I've said this to my finance team. You would rob me, right? And they go, no, we won't, right? This is some of the conversations I've had. You would rob me. I'm like, no, we won't. They're like, we won't. I'm like, you will. I said, because if your kids got kidnapped, you'd raid my bank account because I'd raid yours. Like, so when the condition changes, if you like, the values change of that individual. So somebody who's very, very on your team right now and on your side, the minute that their conditions change, the values change. And I see that's where a lot of people get into trouble with when they get into partnerships or they start thinking about directorships or locking in physios for the next 2 or 3 years. You have to be really, really careful and have the courage to actually consider the potential downside in it all, which I don't think many people do in business.
Yeah, I think there's huge value to that. And I think that's why it's really important that you've got somebody in your life somewhere that asks questions from a different perspective. Because I think, particularly as a business owner who is quite entrepreneurial, we are eternal optimists.
Yeah.
We're always looking for the positive. We're always looking for okay, here's the challenge, here's the problem. Well, what's the opportunity? Like that, we're wired to kind of think that way. Like, okay, because that allows us to be positive, it allows us to make a plan, it allows us to take action, it allows us to take back control. And that's when we probably have our most energy, when we're doing that sort of thing. But we're naturally like positive, and I think you've used the phrase positively naive, and that's exactly that can be more apt for that time. And I still continue to be that way, I suppose. But having that sounding board where somebody asks you what could go wrong and what is the worst case scenario, and then planning for the worst case scenario makes you totally cool with making that decision to then allow you to go forward with a lot more confidence in the direction you actually want to go, or change angle slightly. So like we went through the exact same process when we moved our premises last year, like, and bought our new premises. So you had to like risk assess everything and then figure out, okay, this is a big chunk of investment, a big chunk of growth, a big step forward, but has a significantly more risk element to it. But what is the downside? Like, what did I need to consider that I couldn't see past, beyond, or through, or how to approach, how do I choose which premises I go to? Like how do I avoid making like a fatal mistake, if you like? And all that consideration was hugely important to removing that doubt, as you put it, and then like gives the confidence to make a positive decision that I could live with either way.
Yeah, it's why I think being as a business owner so reflective, or being reflective, is so important in life as well. It's at every step of the journey, if you can look back and just kind of almost analyze the decisions that you're making and why you're making them, how you're getting there. And whenever I do it, that's why I coined that phrase, positively naive. I actually asked somebody, I had a couple of coaching sessions with somebody once, and it was about that topic, right? And I just said to them, like, how do I do this, right? I was like, I'm like very reflective on myself and like how I do shit and stuff, because I just like to know. I think if you know, you can leverage it. And I remember saying to this person, it was a few years back, how do I do it? How do I get the balls to do all of this, right? I'm like, I have no idea where this comes from. How did I get the balls to just fly to America one day, start putting on conferences, start like doing meetups in hotels and all of this stuff, which I was doing back in, certainly before, you'll have found me. 2015, I'm like, come on, Natalie, I know we've got a 12-month-old, but we're going to America for 8 weeks. Well, what about your job? No, I'm leaving that behind now. The business, like, we're off. We're going to go and stay in San Diego. She's like, where's that? Well, it's on the West Coast, this little town called La Jolla. There's a couple of seminars and a few people I might try and be able to meet when I'm there. Then that like turned into, wow, we need to come back. We went home, came back, and we did it again and again and again. And then you think, well, how did I even get the balls to start the business, right? Fine. How to quit my job? Then how do you get the balls to go and buy your second premises, your third premises, and your fourth premises? And I think it pays to really try and understand it, right? And in my case, it's positively naive that my personality, my characteristic of how I live is I look into the future, I'll see it, and I'll immediately see it for what it could be. And I'm naive about the risks and it could go wrong. And I'm naive about what everybody thinks and the complexity of it all, right? If you really hang around in this office, right, it's chaos right now because of PPM Life. I'm naive to how stressed everybody is, how like I'm chucking shit at everybody, and I'm just like, yeah, but it's easy, that's fine, don't worry about it, blah blah blah. Because my personality type is naive to like it'll go wrong, and because I kind of live that way, but equally I consider what could go wrong and what the risk is. So I'm not blasé about that it won't go wrong. I'm just really, really comfortable if it does. And it's a very healthy trait to have as a business owner. And I think most people have got it. They just don't have a label for it. And if you look at your life and you sat with your wife tonight and you went, how did I get the balls to do that? How did I ever think I would have the audacity to become like this, what you're doing today? How did I ever think? You've got all of these NHS physios looking at you, right? Why haven't they done it? Because they haven't got the audacity, that positive naivety to go, well, I'm just gonna have a go. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And if I don't pull it off, I don't pull it off. I'll be all right. I'm not, I'm not doing anything else. Even like I said, this event, how the hell have we pulled this off? Like getting all of these people from all over the world. How did I get you coming from fucking Scotland down to Hartlepool and now across to Orlando?
Nothing went Hartlepool. How did you get me to Orlando?
That's what I'm saying. How the fuck have I got you on a flight, right, through immigration, across to Orlando and whatever else?
You've not got me through immigration yet.
Well, but you're willing to take that visa. You're willing to run the gauntlet, if you like, of coming it. And a lot of it is, again, right, you need to understand this and leverage it. And this is where I think it's very important for business owners. These are the bits that are behind the scenes that are not just sort of, oh, he's a marketing planner, he's all that shit that everyone, and that's fine. You need all that stuff. But at some point, you've got to realize you've probably got that in you. And it's one of your biggest strengths, is what I'm trying to say. That everybody around you will be like, what the fuck? I've no doubt when I announced it, the size of it, the cost of it, some of my team will have been like, fucking, I will never pull this off. How will we get 300 people and Damon John and people from all over the world and organize this 4-day thing and whatever else, parties and singers and fire marshals? Like, I'm a physio, remember, right? At heart, I'm a physio. But in it, or in my original, kind of life, in it, there is this absolute positive naivety about it. And what's the opposite, which I always say? Negatively certain. Like, who would you rather be? Negatively certain or positively naive? You can choose whichever the hell you want to be. And it's a hell of a lot more fun being positively naive, as long as you've considered what could go wrong. And even if it does, that you're really cool with it. But the reality is this, and I always remember this person telling me this, even if it does go wrong, the chances of it going wrong, it won't go wrong, right? This was the phrase, something like, it can't go wrong because it won't go wrong because it can go wrong. Because even if it did go wrong, you'd have loved it anyway. So the chances are it probably won't go wrong. Because you love it, that's why it doesn't go wrong. Like, you're really, really comfortable with the fact of what you're doing. You're significantly more likely to get it right. And therefore, it probably won't go wrong, rather than they're like, oh shit, I haven't thought about any of these things that could go wrong and I'm really not comfortable with them. So then I won't spend on marketing. Then I won't spend on my personal development. I won't spend on the premises like what you've done. As you look back, what you're going to realize is you've made all of these decisions, Steve, that you had to make in order for it to go right. You take any of those decisions out, you didn't have the courage to make them, and it might not have worked. And if you're living in fear, you don't go and get the second premises. You don't join masterminds a week before COVID. You don't hire second and third physios. You don't have aggressive business growth plans that you're going to execute on because you're permanently in fear.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very true. And it's you've got to start with a decision somewhere. Like, I remember my first hire being like hiring my first admin and going from a virtual PA, basically, like,
Yep.
which everybody had, and having everybody in the clinic on associate model, which
Yep.
is for the American one. That's like a self-contractor. And that I was doing that because that was a done thing. That was the industry standard. That was the expectation. I wasn't doing it because it was the right thing for the business, because if I'd thought about it, clearly it wasn't. The balance of risk was completely upside down, and it really limited your ability to grow, because as soon as you change your rates or your prices, then they, they get an immediate kickback. And
Imagine running that model right now with everything going up. Oh my goodness.
Bonkers. But then to think that I'd go from that to having like 10 employees. Like I was explaining to this to a friend like the other weekend, they were like, how many? Like, so, yeah. So, so I couldn't really appreciate like how like quickly that's probably happened, to end up having like 3 admin, 1 massage therapist, 2 sports therapists, and 2 physios.
Yeah.
It's like, actually, that's pretty cool. But never really. You don't stop very often to think, like, actually come a reasonable way, and that the fact that they're all employees. And interestingly, I was treating is he an accountant? Is he a financial advisor? He came in as a patient, and he was basically touting himself for business. For business, he was trying to say, "Hey, my ideal patient, my ideal client is like somebody like you, just a small business." I was like, "All right, let's get your back fixed first, pal, and then we'll have a chat if you really want." He's like, "Yeah, but you don't want employees." It's like, all right, do you not? No. It's like, do you have any employees? No, don't have any employees. Is that all right? And this is how you get your. This is interesting. This is an interesting conversation. I was like, well, I've got a slightly different perspective to you. I actually think it's much better for creating a team, creating like everybody on board and working towards a common goal, creating a culture, having a platform for growth, making sure like your key ratios in terms of turnover to like the staff, like the stuff that I would probably never have learned had it not been around a business community. Then it doesn't allow you to have that model and platform and understanding of like the strategic platform that you need to be successful. I think that's like, but to come back to that, like making one decision, at least another decision. The first one was the front desk. I was nervous about that. I was anxious about that. And best thing ever, isn't it? Like, and then within about 3 weeks or 2 weeks or even 3 days, you're like, hang on, why didn't I do this before? Like, all right. So that worked. That was a good bit of advice, Paul. Cheers, pal. Right. What was the other thing you said? Hire somebody else. So, all right, I'll have a bash at that then. Well, here we are. We've got 10.
Fantastic. The thing you've got to factor in, and you've got to give yourself credit. I always think good business owners make it look easy. And when your friends tell you, what, 10? What they're saying is like, but aren't you supposed to be stressed? Or aren't you supposed to have told us all of this drama that goes on in your life? Or aren't you supposed to have, like, I don't know, being this hotshot guy who wears a suit with like a briefcase or something? Like they just can't put it in their head. They've got this image of somebody, of how they run a business, right, that doesn't match up with you. And that's when like people get shocked at like the size of what you do and how easy you make it look, because you've got the knowledge and because you've got the skills. Like, it's so, like, I have to stop myself sometimes, like being so nonchalant about it, that I'm like, I better be careful here, because I could very easily become like across as arrogant. Where you're like, no, that's quite like, how do you get to 40 employees? I don't know, actually. Yeah. Oh shit, 40. Yeah, that's how many I've got. Like, and you can see people's like the steam coming out of their ears, that they can't understand how you do what you do. What, you can leave a business and go to Orlando, Steve, with 10 employees. Like, that's just not cool. Like, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be in your office with a suit on and a tie around your neck so tight that you can barely fucking breathe. Like, you're supposed to live a certain way, and like, you don't match up to it. You book the trend, if you like. So it does confuse people as to how you've done it. But again, if you want that reflective piece, it's because you've made it look easy. which is the effect. It's because the cause, because you're already talking about ratios and how to hire people and keeping an eye on the assets to revenue ratio and all of these things that you've learned over the last however many years that give you a chance. Like, you want to be a good footballer, you learn how to play certain formations. You want to be I was going to say a good accountant, but I'm not sure there is many out there. There's accountants and there's bookkeepers, but there's not many. Insert the good at the I couldn't help but laugh at your description of it, because have I not been? Doesn't matter whether you're in Scotland, England, or America. These fucking CPAs and accountants, they are unbelievable at convincing you that you don't need people, and they're the same people who are still working at 75, like, and stressed to bits on, like, my taxes due tomorrow in the US, and what day is it? It's the day before at 1:36. I get the fucking and it's a stressed email that goes, "I urgently need you to do it." I'm like, dude, you've had fucking 10 months to do this thing, right? And it's a different. He'll probably have some virtual assistant that he's copied in that is different from the last time. That, like, he's projecting his stress onto me. Like, but I'm like, the fucking thing hasn't changed. It's every year on the 14th of September or whatever it is. I have to file my thing, but there's no staff. I mean, they don't know how to use and leverage staff. Somebody should be ringing me on the 15th of September and going, right, we're starting next year's filings like tomorrow. Here's what we need from you, so that the guy at the end just goes bang, it's done. But they haven't got the people to do it. He'll have a 2-month break now from a heart attack that he's had from getting everybody's stuff out. Then he'll start the whole ridiculous journey all over again. But it's apparently better if he doesn't employ people. So tell us about some successes. What's going on? What are you really proud of in your business? We've got 10 staff. Obviously, that's fantastic for you. Moving premises, we talked about. What else?
I think that is probably the two most significant ones for me at this stage of my journey. I think creating a team culture is something that's quite important to me. Like, if you're going to spend all that time at work with these people, I kind of want to have fun with them and, like, enjoy it. So I want everybody to come to work and, like, enjoy being there first and foremost. Like, we've all got a choice of whether we actually want to be there or not. Like, they could all choose to leave and apply for different jobs if they wanted to. So I want them to come to a place where they can enjoy, be challenged, grow, learn, be fulfilled, and hopefully be successful as well. I understand where we sort of sit in terms of, like, there will be people that will outgrow us and move on to bigger and better things, and maybe go to roles that I can't compete with, and that's absolutely cool. I'll be grateful for the time they've had with us, and hopefully we've played a part in their journey and their development and their growth, and that would be absolutely delighted. But if they can stay with me sort of 2 to 5 years and be a part of this journey, and I think the fact that they can see that we're growing and we're developing, and everything that I spoke about we've delivered, is actually really quite cool, because that then gives them a lot of confidence in me when we go to do, like, our annual planning and we actually talk about things, and things actually happen off the back of it. It's not some sort of pointless meeting where nothing changes. It's all just for the sake of it. And the team the other day, one of the team came to me and said, you went in on Tuesday and we were all sitting having lunch and talking about how we don't even think about coming to work as a negative thing. We all actually quite look forward to it and quite enjoy it. And you've actually created this, so well done. And having that sort of wee bit of feedback is like, that's quite cool. And it's nice to hear when that's backed up off the back of actually having August, which was our best month ever, which is a sign that things are, like, trending in the right direction. Do you know?
I can tell you're smashing it, because a lot of people haven't had their best month in August. If anything, it's probably gone the other way for the majority of businesses. So you're bucking the trend. Well, again, I can see from a global point of view, and it isn't just a UK thing, America thing, it's an Australia thing. We've got clients in New Zealand. I would say 8 out of 10 clients had a pretty not the greatest June, July, August. And what's interesting there is there's nothing really to say that that's the business's fault, because it's a global thing going on, right? Like, if it was just in your business, in your town, then you're like, oh, maybe something. But when it's in multiple towns, in multiple states, in multiple countries, that's a retraction of buying or spending or fear or doubt or whatever. So it's very real, the kind of what's coming down the line for businesses. So the fact that you've booked that trend, you're doing something incredibly well.
Yeah, I mean, like June and July, certainly we fitted with that world trend
Yep.
model, if you like. But then to be able to put into, like, the fact that we've got that live and play data changes things,
Yep.
right? Whereas before, like, I would definitely have been like reflective, like looking at it maybe a month or 2 months or 3 months, even 6 months down the line, or like probably back at the beginning, like end of the year.
Yeah.
when you looked at your accounts and going, actually, that wasn't such a good month or whatever.
Standard. Yeah.
But when you're getting that on a weekly basis, and you know exactly where you are and what's sitting and what's going on elsewhere, then you can make adjustments. So then we ran like a big marketing campaign in July, right, which was like 50% off our initial assessments, because we knew everybody was away on holiday again for like the first time ever, and schools were all off.
Yep. Yep.
Place
Yep.
was dead. There was nobody here. I was like, well, let's just chuck out like a crazy introductory offer, get people in the door, people who maybe wouldn't otherwise be looking. And we ended up with like over like 100 new patients coming in.
Fantastic.
And then all of a sudden you convert them into appointments, and then August is rammed.
Oh.
Like, it's cause and effect, isn't it?
Yep.
But it comes down to understanding your levers and understanding the mechanics of it all, and being able to sort of look at it. I mean, I could quite easily have chucked that same campaign out and it not worked. And it wouldn't have been that I'd done anything wrong or different. It'd just be that would be the market. But it gives you a chance, doesn't it? It just gives you a chance.
The thing that you missed on top of it, which again is credit to you, is execution. Because I could give the numbers to you and I could show you the path and I could tell you what it is that you need to do, but then the fact that you go and execute on it, it's the final kind of missing piece. Assuming that what you're going to execute on is the right, direction. That's normally the path that's missing. That people are too busy, they're frightened. We don't want to give away a promotion, and what if we attract the wrong type? It's like, whatever, just get it out the door and see what you get and correct it in play. Which again is back to that positive naivety. It's don't fight about it, just do the fucking thing.
Implementation is something I've always been quite good at. I'm always quite good at like just trying stuff and do it and see what happens, and like don't really care what people think at all.
I think it's the Scottish thing inside of you that you've just got used to not caring what people think about Scots, and you've had that much criticism over the years from people like me that now you've just took that into your business.
Iota.
It's like the French. You and the French are very similar. You get that much criticism from people around the world that like you've just developed this thick skin now, and it's perfect to be a business owner. Maybe we need to run some more marketing ads in Scotland, Macy. If that's what they're all like up there, they're all thick skinned and they just do shit. That's kind of the client that we're looking for. Right, challenges. What challenges have you run? It's all rosy so far, Steve. It's all rosy, but where's the headaches? Where's the challenges?
The challenges have definitely come through like growing a team. Like, there's no question we've had a turnover in staff, and like as we've made that transition away from the associate model to an employee model, you need a different type of person. But so as the business is growing, like we came through, if you use the soccer analogy, we came through the conference.
Yep.
And we're maybe in League One or the Championship at the moment, and we've had to upgrade our team as we've go along. And you're trying to change the model, and some people will change and be okay with it and understand the reasons behind it, and other people are not cool with it because you're changing their terms and conditions. Of course, they're not going to be cool with it. So it takes a bit of a shift from that, but then that's an opportunity. Like it's always an opportunity to upgrade your team, isn't it? Like so. But unfortunately, that caused a lot of transition. You've got to manage that transition and trying to keep everybody positive and see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And not allow other people within the team who are seeing maybe a bit of a turnover to have doubt about like what's going on here, and create still have the harmony and have the stability. I think within the business and I think when you move so fast and there's a lot of growth and as the the leader, I suppose, of the organisation, you are quite cool with that because you've created it.
You've preempted it as well. It's back to you make it look easy because you anticipated it.
Yeah, but I think sometimes other people within your team,
Yeah.
they don't have that confidence because they've not created it, and they're just seeing all this like turbulence play out behind them, and they're like, wow, what is going on? So I think like communication is obviously so important throughout that phase to keep everybody relaxed, unemotional on site. But like managing different people through that, like we've had a few people and we've hired a few people who it hasn't worked out with, and they've caused like headaches because you stress about it because you want everybody that comes in to be successful, and you think everybody that you hire is going to be successful. Like realistically, like in hindsight, like that's just a nonsense thing to say. But as soon as you've interviewed somebody, you go,
that's the one.
That's the one. He's going to smash it out of the park, or she's going to be amazing, and this is all just going to be sweet. Honestly, I think I can go home just now, put my feet up, crack open a bottle of wine, sit in front of the fire with the dog, read a book, and life's going to be crack. But it usually doesn't really play out that way. So, like staff turnover's probably been the absolutely the biggest challenge. And then you go back to interviews. You go back to your interview process, you go back to advertising, time consuming when people don't turn up for an interview, and you get lost revenue because you've got patients that you can't service, and you've got these new premises, and then that affects cash flow, and then you've got COVID, another wave of COVID comes, and then business energy prices change through the roof, or there's something else that's going to be around the corner that's going to like just whack your legs away from you. And
Scotland won't be at the mercy of any energy prices. Surely you've got your own oil, haven't you? Haven't you got your?
We've got our own oil. We've got more wind than anybody knows what to do with.
So it's you guys that are holding the rest of the world to ransom. Is that the truth?
You would. Well, it depends if you listen to Wee Nippy or not, but. Always don't make this a political show.
You're right though, right? And again, I think what I love, what I'm certainly trying to do with the podcast is we're trying to get behind the scenes of businesses where we've got this kind of surface level. You need your marketing, you need your leadership, your finance, and all that, right? But let's get behind the what's the what is of business, and the what is. We'd love it to be that we hire people and everything's rosy, but the what is the truth of business. The is world rather than the should be world that most people live in. The is world is that will be your biggest challenge for a growing business. How do you keep your eye on cash? Get a handle on cash, and ultimately, how do you keep a culture that's less maintenance, if you like, and more high performance? And if you can't do that, I think that's where businesses get stuck. And what I've certainly found, I mean, it's funny listening to the story, and you're probably going to go through 2 or 3 of these things, but there'll be a mutiny somewhere, and you're going to have 2 or 3 people. You'll get to a certain size, and 2 or 3 people will be little teams, and there'll be little things said in the chat or the little Slack messages you've got, or text message WhatsApp groups, or whatever gets set up. And the real test of character for the business leader is how do you deal with all that shit? That's going to start. That just inevitably starts happening. And anybody with 10 or more people who think that hasn't or doesn't happen to them, you're living cuckoo land, as I often say. But that will be the thing that you've got to watch out for. But accept that it's fine. It's perfectly normal. Like, it's not what you want, but it's not just happening to you. That's the thing that you're fending off all of the time. Have you ever had anything like a mutiny? Any rock stars, pain in the asses? Anybody you've had to deal with? I always love this question. It always makes me feel better when you say you have.
I had one, yeah.
Come on then, tell a story. We'll change the name to protect the not so innocent.
Was it a he or a she? I can't really say.
That doesn't matter. I don't know if we're allowed to say either.
I know. Non-binary.
Yeah, they'll do for now. Then we can't be sued, neither of us, at this point.
Yeah. That's always a good place to be. I'll think about the downside.
See, I've got lawyers waiting in the background. It's just that I've been stung enough times on my own podcast when I talk about certain people in my team, not in the media team, but back in my other businesses, where And I'm sure some bastard is still listening to this right now who relays every word, whoever the fucker is. I know you are. He listens to every single one of these podcasts and relays every single thing that I say that has anything that could be interpreted by any of my past staff, and can't wait to tell them on the WhatsApp group that they're all involved in. So the bastard who's listening to this, I know exactly who you are. This one's for you. That's all.
Oh, I know, like the thing is, I'm genuinely grateful for everybody that's came into the business. Like that's the strange thing about it, is because I know they're probably not maybe so grateful for having their experience or whatever.
Yeah.
But I genuinely am, because like they came in, they contributed, and I probably learned something about myself as a manager, a leader, and throughout the whole situation. Like, so despite how it actually transpired, like I've taken something from it and probably changed and grown and modified accordingly. But they came in, and honestly, the first 3 months they were knocking it out of the park.
Yeah.
Absolutely, like hit the ground running. They came from the NHS. They came from a negative environment. They were singing our praises. Like, why are people not queuing up to work for a place like this? Like, this is the dream. Like, this is just awesome. And then went away on a holiday. Interestingly, there's a trigger, right? So what happened on that holiday? Like somebody else in their ear, somebody else changed to dynamic, maybe elsewhere. Who knows? I'll never probably know the truth. Came back, started moaning about other people, started asking for, like, said that they were struggling in this area and that area. Gave them confidence, reassured them, tried to give them training, tried to support them in other ways that I could. I can't do that. I can't do this. I don't want to do massage anymore. I don't want to do that type of treatment anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't like her anymore. I don't like him anymore. Like, how many things can you hit me with here? Like, I think every week I was going through my one-to-ones with them. Like, how can I support you? How can I help you? It's like I'm getting a different thing every week. So it's like I've got a list now of about like 20 things that's wrong with the world. Like, and it's like, this can't be me. It just like it can't just be me. Like a lot of them were, but like it was like I need time off. I need mental health. I need like physical health. I need away from that person. That person needs sacked, but there's not an issue, and I'm not going to report it. And I'm not going to escalate it. And nothing's happened. It's like I don't just speak to them, please. How about that? How about we take just a wee bit more responsibility? But ultimately, it just wasn't. I think there was two. It was they've gone from a big team to a small team. So they've gone from an employer, which is the biggest employer in Europe, like massive, like can hide an award, can hide in an office, there's no accountability, there's no exposure, and you've gone from the 3 months where you can kid on and get past the probationary phase, and then all of a sudden you've checked your contract and realise you don't have quite maybe the same healthcare sick leave benefits as that you maybe once had. And you've realised that you've maybe not checked that properly before agreeing to the terms and conditions. And then Twin B absolutely came out full force on like between months 4 to 6. And you can't kid on your personality. You've got to be who you are, like for the majority of the time. So that caused a lot of disruption within the team, disharmonies, a lot of like you do question yourself, like, is it me? Is it something I've done? Am I not handling this right? Do I need HR support? Like, we don't have an HR department. Like, I try to deal with things just by being as helpful and as supportive as you possibly can be within reason. And it was difficult. But despite all that, they treat the patients well, and they were actually really good with the patients. So, like, it wasn't a clinical problem. It was always a non-clinical personality problem, and there was probably too much exposure, there was probably too much accountability, there was I think the maybe the commercial aspect or the pace of change actually I think was actually one of the key things. Like they weren't used to a place that changed so quickly and was so progressive, that you've got to be a certain type of personality that likes change.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of people like safety and security and comfort and dislike change, and they like change to be a bit more gradual and on their terms,
Yep.
not on somebody else's terms.
Yep.
And when I'm just going like 100 mile an hour, like just back from Hartlepool, got a great idea.
It's true. It's true. You're right. And again, it's
part of the problem, and that
yep.
caused that. I think that definitely caused that one to go like a little bit over the top.
Yeah, and it's easy to think, it's what you said or did or went on a holiday or whatever. They're just assholes, right? Like they're just asses that like they're very good actors. They acted their way through the interview. I've wrote down here, and I've said this for years, and I'll say it forever. I think it's in my book. First 3 months, you get to figure out whether or not they can do the job, performance. 6 months, their character gets revealed. Every single time. Every single time, bar none. 3 months, can you do the job? As in, are you a good marketer? Are you a good front desk gal? Can you do the emails? Can you do the phone calls? 6 months in, are you a good guy? Are you a good gal? Like, as in, have you got a good, strong, rounded, good values? Are you about the business? Are you about your team? Are you for the bigger, greater good of what we're doing? Or are you for yourself? That happens nearly always at 6 months. And
Yeah.
when they say the 90-day thing, I've corrected it from 90 days for performance, but it's 6 months, 180 days for person, and it's the person that kills you in the end.
I would say my experience of that has backed that up 100% on probably 2 or 3 occasions. When you get to that point, and I think also though that like when you do start employing people, like initially you're probably you're unsure about it from your own perspective, and when you're bringing somebody else into the clinic, and I don't know if you felt this initially when you first started to recruit and hire, is that you feel like a duty of care towards the patients so much and quite protective of your baby, if you like, that you focus a lot on the clinical skills initially. And when you're interviewing, it's like there's a huge focus on, can you do the clinical? Have you got the knowledge? Are you aligned with me in terms of how I treat and like a philosophy about like maybe like strength and conditioning, like rehab on a certain topic? Would you use this type of technique or would you do this? Or like it's very clinical in terms of knowledge and clinical reasoning and evidence-based practice and all that jargon. Whereas actually, like the key metric is like, would I go for a pint with you on a Friday night after work?
Are you a decent person?
Are you a decent person? Are you a good, kind person that I could actually hang about with for 40 hours a week?
I think what we have to be careful of right now, and I'll just talk about myself on this. What I have to be careful of is that you have to give these people a little bit of respect, if you like, because they're just the right person in the wrong environment, and they need to go back to the national health or big corporate offices where they can hide, and there's drama and there's no outcomes, and nobody even notices if they have a day off. Like they're fantastic in those kind of self-fueling, drama-ridden, politics-related kind of everybody's got a high opinion on everything kind of place, right? Which is candidly 9 out of 10 businesses. What we look for is needles in haystacks. You look for needles in haystacks, if you like, where people come in who, even when your back's turned, they're good people. And they're part of something much bigger. They want to buy into this team-based thing. They feel good about that. That makes them energized, just look forward to coming to work on a Monday. That's not for us to decide who that person is. It's just for us to create that environment and just say, who do you want to be? Do you want to be the pain in the ass if you do need to leave? Thanks very much. Or do you want to stay? This is probably a cool place for you. You're going to be really happy here. I'm never going to do anything to irritate you, piss you off. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going to do anything. Like I'm going to ask for certain things. I'm going to be pretty assertive. I'm going to be pretty intense rather than tense. I'm not going to have you walking on eggshells, but I will expect that we hit deadlines. Like I can do both. I can accept that I can equally ask you to hit deadlines without making you feel like the world's going to end if we don't. And I think that's part of this, who you are as a business owner, and you're very, very reflective. I've loved talking to you because you're obviously very reflective on all of this stuff, and that's why you're successful. That's why you're enjoying your life, and it's not a big drama to fly out to Orlando. It's like, I'm gone. Like I just know that that's the journey I'm on. I'm going to meet somebody. I'm going to find something, one piece of information, one person, see a business model that I didn't see or know about, and I'm going to take it back to Craigston in Scotland, if they'll let you back in, and like implement this stuff into your business, if you like, and it'll be the next step. And somebody will not like what you've done, but it's not Steve, it's not the business, it's that ultimately they were just in that wrong environment. Steve's job was to recognize it, figure out when they'd kind of passed that point, and just respectfully say, look, I think it's best if you go there, because we're going in this this direction. And that's what all of our jobs in the end, that's really the one that you're going to do for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I mean, why not go to Orlando? I mean, it's much more fun than
Scotland in October, Glasgow in October, or Orlando in October.
Yeah, absolutely.
But right, we laugh
You've
about
got to be
that.
open to
Again,
the opportunity.
we laugh about that, right? And to me, that's the truth. I would just sit there going, "Fuck this!" Like, I'm off, right? Like, I'm at Hartlepool in the middle of October. I can go and fly out to Orlando for 5 days with some cool friends, and like meet some new friends and learn some stuff and be excited and come back energized, right? Your kids will have a completely different dad when he lands back on the Tuesday morning or whatever day you get home. Your wife will have a completely different husband. The employees will have like, they want the energized Steve. They want the Steve that's like vibrant and excited, and that's what this does. It juices you.
But I know it's so much, and that's, I think we spoke about this a lot in July, but like the COVID like exposed this massively, and I'm sure everybody would probably analyze it like the news was constant negativity.
Yeah.
It was stress and concern around everything like that surrounded you. Whoever you spoke to, they were all in this mega stress, negativity, downward cycle. The most important thing that you could do during that phase was control your own energy and control your own mindset. What you listen to, what you feed your brain, how you sleep, how you exercise, your nutrition, and keep your energy up so that your creativity was good.
Yeah.
And that's like fundamentally, as the leader of like any business, like if you don't have energy, like was it like, I think what do you call this, like the chief energy officer rather than
Chief
the
energy
CEO?
officer. That's my job. Yep.
Absolutely it, like in a nutshell. And protecting your energy is probably the single most important thing that I've learned to do. Like we've always spoke about like prioritizing like time, money, resources, but prioritizing in like your own energy and like how you like be able to deal with all these challenges. You can deal with it much better if you're not a
Yeah.
stressed, moody, negative person. Like if you're trying to deal with all that shit and you're just in a horrible place, that can't be much fun.
Yeah.
But like if you're a wee bit more relaxed about it, healthy, happy, and everything's cool at home, then these things are just
Well,
like, they're not insignificant, but they're less important. Like,
I spoke to my team about this morning. So obviously the Queen's died, and I am obviously subscribed to England and various, my TV, and I live in a house in Orlando, but my TV's British, my radio's British. Like,
and even the Queen chose to come to
right,
Scotland.
exactly. She did it. Yeah, to end it. That's it. So I've had enough of this. I've had enough. I'm gone.
Nothing going away,
I'm off.
Scotland. It's the best place.
No, do you know what? I'm gonna swallow my words. I'm gonna come to Scotland in the next year or two, and I'm gonna kind of go and see the Highlands and all of that shit. Is there anything else up there? But I'll come up there. I'll come up there, and I'll
Paddleboarding and all.
yeah, I'll get the paddleboard out. But back to the Queen, right? And I get it. I whatever anybody's opinion on it is, it's a pretty historic event. It's a big thing, and rightly, it's grabbing the headlines. But the bit that I said to my team this morning, and I always talk to them, and I preface it with, whatever you think about me, I'm going to say these things as if my kids were teenagers, this is what I'd say to them. And my observation of what's going on with the Queen, the biggest thing to learn, right, it's not how everybody's now, kind of, it's inundated with you on the TV or the news or your social media or whatever back in England, Britain, sorry. What my observation was, anybody seen any headlines about energy prices? Anybody seen any headlines about who actually is the new Prime Minister of England, of Britain? Anybody know her name? right? Anybody seen anything about Boris lately? Anybody slagging the cabinet off? Is anybody seen anything? And again, horrible as it sounds, the Ukraine war, right? My point is that these bastards in the media will determine what they want you to focus on. When this funeral's over on Monday, Tuesday, it's straight back to what's going to piss the country off the most. Energy prices, something that the new Prime Minister said 6 years ago, probably been it'll be brought up. They're just waiting for it on Tuesday. It'll be in their thing. Apparently, she didn't like the monarchy. She wanted an end to it. Oh, that's coming out in a couple of weeks, right? They'll just wait for that to pass, and then everybody will be focused on that. And then they'll all want her out because she said this in like 1982, and then that doesn't work. So it's like, right, back to the energy prices to piss everybody off. And so that hasn't worked. There's a new COVID strain coming out, and it's just this constant. Whatever they want you to think about, they will. And what's funny, it's not funny actually, but people are not in control of their lives at all because of it, and they think they are. Even the ones who I don't watch the news, it's like their brain is still brainwashed by all of the shit that's going on, and there's this thing inside them that makes them think that's important. I must watch this. I must do this. I must have an opinion on the energy. I must have an opinion on that. I must have an opinion. You're not. Like, why? Why do you want one on all of this shit? It just makes what I think most people are living, which is a very nervous life. They're on edge. They're nervous about everything. The shit that's happened in the past might catch up with them. The shit that they're going to do in the future that they haven't even done yet is going to go wrong. They're just living a very nervous life, and if you're not careful, that becomes the summary of your life, and that's where all your energy goes. And you're kind of worrying, or your nervousness about it, and there's not that much left to tackle the pain in the ass that you have to deal with, or the WhatsApp groups that get set up behind your back, and all of that can be a distraction from it, and what somebody's going to say about you on Google, or the decision you need to make this week to raise your prices because your energy prices have gone up. Like, that's what makes me laugh, is that these business owners listening to this, they'll accept all sorts of pay rises from energy companies, from electrics, from landlords, from their staff, but not one of them will go on the offensive and go, right, fuck it, I'm putting my prices up by 20%. In fact, I'm pissed off, I'm putting them up 30 just to feel better about myself. They won't do that. And that's why, or that's because primarily they've not enough energy to fight the fight, to make the big calls. That in the end, as a business owner, ignore most of the little shit that's going on and just focus on the one or two big things that probably happen once a week. If you get them right, you'll do what you've done, and your business moves on, marches on fantastically well.
Yeah, I think an important part of that though is that you're right that they've got all that negativity around them. So what should their strategy be to overcome that? It's quite clear that you've got to then surround yourself with people who are positive, but then also people that are going through what you're going through. And I always felt like if I was going to learn about business and wanted to accelerate my path to success, was like find a model that's been successful and just copy it, or just hang about with them a bit longer, and you pick things up as you go along. And that's pretty much what's happened within like the group. And like when it came to that group, met Nikki, met Gav, and then along comes the rest like Dan and Leslie and things like
Well,
that.
Nash people, yeah.
And you learn like so much just from hanging about them. But then you've got that positive support group who are making positive decisions as well, and throughout that whole phase.
Yeah.
And you think, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And if they're discussing that, so okay, I'll do that. And then like you hear what your story is, and you go, okay, I'll do that. And then you ask a wee question like occasionally, and you can maybe get like the alternative point of view, and you go, ah, shit, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
That's a good one, right? That saved me making that mistake. So instead of going backwards, I've avoided that pitfall, and then I can make another decision that just maybe takes me that another wee step forward, and it just snowballs.
Progress.
Like, was it connect the stars backwards and all that as well?
Yep.
And it all comes back from like driving a Hartlepool in a snowy. It's not like making the decision.
Well, it goes further than that. Like, yeah,
good, like,
yeah,
and then action in it, like you say, like it does come down to implementation at the end of the day. Like,
it goes back to this. The first star was I have a scratch that tells me, or there's something itching at me that tells me I'm better than what I'm getting. I can do more. I'm going to search for a book. I'm going to look for a podcast, right? Yeah, we can track it all the way to my masterminds or whatever, right? But really, it's you that goes, there's something more out there for me. I've got an intuition. I'm going to scratch it and I'm going to go look. And once I've started looking, I'm not going to stop. and that's the first star, then all of a sudden you line these up in 10 years, a bright star is going to be Orlando in 3 weeks. You'll walk away from that. Something will happen. Something will be said. You'll meet somebody who gives you an alternative model, a different way to price something, sell something, package something, hire somebody that you go, you know what? It was worth it for that. And I had to be there that day, that night, at that moment, in that bar, in that hallway, to have that conversation. That I went back and executed. That introduced me to the next thing, the next person, the next one, and bang, off I go. And your life really just becomes how do I keep moving? How do I get into places that I'm going to bump into people who are doing really good things, back myself to go home, execute on it and implement, even if it's not perfect, even if it's not that week, I'll do it. And that's what, in the end, your life
yeah, it is interesting when you do get that sort of deep and that reflective, because then you do go back, like, and you go way back, and you go like where does it all start? Where does it all come from? Like,
character. It's your character, Steve. I'll tell you. I mean, like I said, I study this shit for a living. Character. You've got a character that tells you that the box that you were supposed to play in, all of a sudden, one day you started belting against it, whether it's psychologically or just emotionally. You start hitting this box, this brick wall. I want more than this. I want more than this job. I want more than this type of life. I want more than this type of lifestyle. You start hitting the brick wall. When other people go, fuck it, I'm staying in this little box. This is all I know. Your character was strong enough to go, actually, I'm going to break through it and I'm going to go and have a look around. I'm going to read a book, even though I don't have to. I'm going to buy a book, even though I don't need to. Geez, let's just start there for most people. I'm going to listen to some podcasts instead of watching fucking cats get stuck up trees on YouTube, right? I'm going to take a little webinar on a weekend and sacrifice 2 hours. While my wife's in Asda, I'm going to stay at home and fucking watch something. And yeah, whatever happens at the end of it, all I'm doing is I'm strengthening my character. I'm like revealing who that is. But your intuition is that there's something more out there for you. Your character says, yeah, let's go look at it. A little bit of self-belief inside you says, yeah, let's just keep going. Let's keep marching on. Right? Those three things put together are the reason that you're doing what you do today. And those three things will still be the reason that you're doing 6 clinics, 20 staff, and God knows whatever else you're going to do over the next however many years. It's your character, fundamentally. Everybody's got the ability. When they hit that box, you're from a small little town like me, right? It's very, very difficult. The box is small, but there's something in you. That character goes, fuck it. I want more than this. I need more than this. I'm not better than anybody else. I just have something that says I want to go have a look around. And I'm relatively curious enough to go, I'm reading that book, or I'm spending my 2 hours on a podcast, or I'm spending my 4 hours subscribing to these CDs that I've bought, or listening to them and taking some notes. On the flight, everybody else is playing on solitaire and fucking watching some shit movie that they've seen 60 times, and you're probably reading a book that when you come off it, you've probably paid for the vacation that you're on with the ideas that you've got from the book that you'll implement in 10 days when you come home. That's the story of successful people's lives. That's what they do. It's not uncommon what you're doing. It leads to success. It has a certain set of behaviors and thoughts that are alien to most people who haven't had success. Like, that's why it is radical, and it is like, oh, Steve's a bit, oh, fucking hell, like, he's weird, he's running his own business and he's successful, and the bigger it gets, the more that'll be like, the bigger the divide will get between people, and the harder that will be to manage, and it opens up a new set of problems that people think you're above your station because you're running a fucking superstar business and you're flying to America and all. People from Craigston don't do this, Steve. Don't you realize? Like, that's not the way that this is.
Do not do that, because the team do laugh at me as well, because like you say, like, I do have like those habits, like
we all. I know you do. I know you do, because everybody successful does.
They speak at lunch and go, "Did you watch that?" And go, "Nah,
nope.
I know what you're talking about."
Give a shit.
What's that thing Netflix?
What did I miss? Tell me. Oh, great. Next.
Get no idea.
Anything else I missed? No. I don't think you heard me. I said, what did I miss? Like, do you get it? I didn't ask about that. I said, what did I miss? Obviously, that's not what I missed. Like, that's absolutely irrelevant. The key in all of this world, and I'll leave it with this, and I'll ask you one more question. The key in all of this, you're going to be surrounded by negativity, by news, by media, by sub-stories, by all sorts of shit that's out of your control. The key is not to latch onto it. That when it hits you, let it go. Like, it just like a little stream. It just floats. That little thing, that little piece of negativity. You have a choice right there and then. Latch onto it and get an opinion about it and get negative, or you just let it go. I'm not that important is the favorite phrase of mine. I'm not that important that whatever that is even the remote interest to my life. Like, there's a certain number of things that I can do and control. I can be in control of, if you like. Everything else, somebody else can have that one, and just get the confidence to to do it more times than not. Last question. Biggest lesson you've learned since joining Mastermind? Obviously, you've been in Mastermind for a few years. What's the best and biggest lesson?
I mean, there's a few. Prioritization's always kind of key, but I think it all comes down to like your mindset and that belief in having the vision. And if you can do that with the energy, then and be surrounded by, I'm kind of including everything here, but if you can be then surrounded by people who think differently to your average population, like none of my mates own businesses, and they all work for the government, they all work for like the local council, and they're employed effectively by the state. So they've got a completely different mindset to life and to
technically they're employed by you, but that's another story for another day. We won't get into that one with them. That little ship hasn't sunk in with most people just yet who work in the public sector, that they're actually employed by the 3% in the private sector who give all of the public sector their money to pay the wages in the first place. But that is another conversation for another day. You just can't have outside of a podcast like this.
Episode 2 is like
There's another WhatsApp group. Whoever the bastard is, he's just set another one off. Did you what he says?
But I don't have that circle. So like having that group, to that support network, being able to ask questions, and it does then give you that vision of, okay, what does the next level look like? Like what if this was my goal like 5 years ago to be here, right? Does it need to be here? Like, or do I limit that?
Yeah.
Do I put that ceiling on myself? Because I had a ceiling on myself before at the previous level. So, but then if I want to see the next level, I've got to be able to visualize that and then have the belief that then I could go and do it and execute it and have the support network to be able to overcome the obstacles that are clearly going to come as you go through that growth. Like, so I think having that belief, vision, and network is just like absolutely key to then executing it and prioritizing the right thing, because you've got somebody asking you the right questions to view it slightly differently. And then your prioritization could be like, okay, I want to do more marketing, but actually you've got an admin problem, like in understanding your numbers. But understanding your numbers is part of the problem. Like, so like the wheels of business are just spinning plates, isn't it? And it's learning how to cope and deal with all of that at the same time, and just being cool with it as you go along, like, and have like enjoy it as well. Like what is the point if you can't enjoy it? Like what is the point in being in business if you're going to be like stressed and complain about things and just moan about everything and feel like the world's against you and just like survive, like just exist through it all and go month to month and just hang on every month? I don't want to be like that. Like, what's the point in that? Like, I want to be able to go to. Isn't it the point of like having like employees so that you can go to Orlando, like or like go and like have time with the kids and like like leave early so I can go pick the kids up from school. I can take the wee guy swimming. Like,
should I tell you how fucked up it is?
And see the smiles in his face, and it's the best. Just I like spending time with them.
Let me tell you how screwed up it is. Right now, there is somebody listening to this who goes, I can't come because I can't leave my employees. And then equally, there's somebody else going, I can't come because I've got no employees. Right there and then, it sums up the madness, right? What you've just said.
Isn't that a great test to go away and see what happens?
But it's their mindset. Their mindset is, some of them they just look for excuses. The mindset is, I've got no staff, so I can't come. And then the mindset of the next person is, I've got staff, so I can't come because I can't leave them. And what I'm saying is that's the prison that business owners put themselves in. One group is telling themselves, when I get employees, I'll come. And then equally, when they get in that group, the reason for not coming is still the employees. Only this time it's, I've got employees and I don't leave them. That's the psychological prison that there's a I don't know, 3,000 people listen to this every time we put one out. 99% of people are in that psychological prison and they wonder why there's no progress. Anyway, right.
Let's give them a wee slap from Scotland to get
Well, we'll wrap this up. We'll wrap this up. But listen, Steve, it's been absolutely amazing. I thoroughly have loved talking to you. I've understood every word you've said. Although we're close enough to each other that we understand each other. So.
Macy's not understood a word of this.
Macy hasn't understood a single thing that's just been said. I'd love to hear a conversation between somebody from Louisville, Kentucky, and Glasgow, Scotland. This is what we do with this community. See, we bring people from all over the world. We're connected. We are connectors. There you go. Is this the first time you've spoken to anyone from Scotland? There you go. See, and I bet it's the first time you've spoken to someone from Louisville. How do I say it? Louisville? Louisville? There you go. They can't say Louisville. It's Louisville. Louisville. There you go. I got it right. I got it right in the end.
It's Louisville when you've had 6 pints.
It will be when you've had a few bourbons. That's all Louisville is famous for. Steve, how can people find out more about you? Where's your Twitter, your Facebook, your Instagram, or anything? Website? What have you got that they can check out your story?
OptimalPhysio.co.uk, and I think on Facebook we're at Optimal Physio UK, and on Instagram I think we're at Optimal Physio. But
fantastic.
I'm not great on social media.
We're kindred spirits. That's why we need wonderful people in our lives like Macy who does all of this stuff
Absolutely.
for us.
That's why we need to hire the right people to.
Correct. Get out of the way and let the experts do their job. Steve, brilliant. Honestly, I've loved it. It'll be a very big inspiration. Honestly, I don't think you realise how successful you are. And the bit that I'd point out to you, I hope you take. You're obviously very reflective. It's a big skill, and that is something that you can leverage when you really understand who you are, what the decisions are you're making. You're in a lot more control than somebody who isn't, and that's probably one of your biggest skills. So well done.
No, thank you. Thanks for all your support.
Amazing. Pleasure. Look forward to seeing you in a few weeks. We'll continue we're gonna have something special for Steve on the opening ceremony. Surely we'll have to.
Yeah, I expect you to come on in a kilt.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to go that far. Simon might come on in a kilt, but I'll have something for you. I won't let you go unmentioned across the course of 3.5 days of a super event.
I know it took you about 5 seconds of this show.
The relationship between the English and the Scots will be renewed, let's call it, on stage in a few weeks. Steve, amazing. Thank you. See you in a couple of weeks. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers.